Could it be? But me, your man, Louie T, welcome to an LTN exclusive continued coverage of the 2022 Reese's Senior Bowl as the draft starts in Mobile. The Senior Bowl was underway this week. It's culminating on Saturday with the game. We've talked about the first 2 days of practice. Want to talk to you about day 3 of practice and kind of give you my overall feel for the week. Winners, risers, losers, guys that didn't go out and separate themselves. We'll do that a little bit later on in the show. I do want to give you a quick, brief reminder that there is a game on Saturday. So even though there was a week of practice, there is still a game on Saturday, rather. And the game on Saturday, to me, is a culmination of everything that happened throughout the course of the week. Now, I think the game is somewhat anticlimactic because everyone has to get in, and it's an exhibition game. It's an all-star game, so everyone's going to get an opportunity, and some guys are going to play 12 snaps and then they're out of there. So I think the week carries a little bit more weight because that's when GMs, coaches, and scouts, guys get to sink their teeth into these prospects, really get a feel for how they are on the field, off the field, see what they can retain and see what they can go out and execute after learning and things of that nature. So I think you get a better sense of how these guys operate throughout the course of the week and not so much on Saturday. That said, I want to talk about the guys that were able to really elevate their draft stock, talk about some guys that I thought didn't necessarily hurt their draft stock as much as they didn't help it as much as they had an opportunity to. We'll do that here in a second. But day 3, quickly. They had to go inside. There was a tornado warning, so they actually practiced at the South Alabama Jaguars inside facility. And there, I want to talk about a couple of positions in particular. One, the tight ends. I briefly mentioned the tight end position, and I talked about how deep of a class this is. You've got McBride from Colorado State. You've got Ferguson from Wisconsin. You've got the big kid Bellinger from San Diego State. I mean, there's so many tight ends in this draft class. I mean, and there's guys that are kind of, off the beaten path. I'm a huge fan of the tight end Ruckert of Ohio State. He's a little bit further down the draft board with all of these tight ends. If he would have come out last year, I think he would have been one of the top 3 tight ends probably taken in the draft, especially after the playoff game he had against Clemson. But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is the guy that stood out the most on day 3 was a guy that wasn't even initially invited to the Senior Bowl. He was a late invite after one of the guys was a scratch. And, I thought he was impressive because he showed the ability to run. I see a lot of these tight ends, and they don't look like they can truly separate with speed. Some of these guys are big, they're physical, they can snatch the football out of the air. You want that, but you also want to see some separation. And you saw it from UCLA tight end Greg Dolcich. And this is a guy that I thought showed the ability not only to separate, but also showed the ability to catch the football. And so that's another guy to add to the list of guys that I think has a chance to really be one of the deeper positions in this draft class. You've got Kohler from Iowa State. You've got Likely from the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. I mean, this is a deep draft class in terms of tight ends. Add another name to that list, a guy that I thought helped himself in Greg Dolcich out of UCLA. A running back that I really am starting to take a strong liking to is a guy that comes from a school that I think has turned into a factory when it comes to running backs. And you kind of know what you're going to get when you get a back from their school. And I'm talking about Alabama, and I'm talking about Brian Robinson Jr. This is a guy that waited his turn at Alabama, could have easily transferred, had a number of injuries throughout his career. Waited his turn, waited patiently, got the opportunity, and he did not miss in 2021. And this is a guy that runs hard. I think he can catch it out of the backfield. He's extremely physical. I don't think he's a blazer, okay? I think that's the one area where he's lacking, but he's still got plenty enough speed to make an impact. And so he's a guy that I think asserted himself well in day number 3, and I'm intrigued by Brian Robinson. I think he's another one of these Alabama backs that's going to come in and have a really good NFL career, and we've seen that even the guys that have had lesser careers and not the Trent Richardsons, he was a massive flop. But even like a TJ Yeldon, a guy that hung around for a little while, who Robinson somewhat reminds me of. I think he's a much bigger back than Yeldon ever was. But when I look at Brian Robinson, I could see him having somewhat of a TJ Yeldon type of path to the NFL, somewhat unheralded. But he can come in, and I think he could have a serious impact. He looks the part. He's got to stay healthy. Obviously had some injury issues at Alabama, but he waited his turn. It paid off for him, and I really like Brian Robinson. And then the last guy in day number 3 is a wide receiver. And usually we're talking about receivers more, but that's, to me, the state of the receiver position in this year's draft class, especially when you're talking about seniors. So the top guys aren't seniors, so they're not at the Senior Bowl. So, the Garrett Wilsons of the world and the Trayvon Burks and all of those guys aren't seniors, so they're not at the Senior Bowl. So you're talking about the rest of the guys. And to me, the guy that stood out at the receiver position is Khalil Shakir from Boise State. And Boise has been producing receivers, not all of them turning out to be successful, but they've been producing receivers, for the last 4 or 5 years. I think the best guy, and he's starting to really assert himself in the league, and he's showing what he's fully capable of, is Cedric Wilson, Jr., who came from that Boise program about maybe 3 years ago. And I think Shakir is a lot closer to him in terms of his skill set. Very versatile guy that they called Swiss at Boise because of the ability to do so many different things, similar to a Cedric Wilson Jr. who came out of that Boise program. And I think he's less like the guy that I wasn't that huge on last year, coming out of that program in John Hightower, or was it 2 years ago? I think Hightower was a draft pick of the Eagles 2 years ago. Either way, I wasn't a big fan of John Hightower, and it was 2 years ago in the draft because they also took the Southern Miss wide receiver as well. So I think this guy's got some talent, man, and he showed the ability to catch the football. He took a couple of big shots and hung on to the ball on day 3 of practice. He was able to uncover with ease, made some great catches. He looks the part, was able to win on a number of different routes in the team drills. And like I said, he looks like he can be a guy that can play in the slot, can do the dirty work over the middle of the football field, catch it in traffic, but also can uncover and win against a safety, a linebacker, and win big and be an inviting target to his quarterback. So there's a lot to like there. Be interesting to see what he runs and how quick he is. A lot of times the slot isn't more so about speed as it is quickness. And so it'd be interesting to see how fast, of a 3-cone and things of that nature that he has, because if he's got quick feet, he could really be a guy that could be a steal in the upcoming draft. So now let's go to the overall week itself and some guys that I feel like are the biggest winners walking out of Mobile, irregardless of what happens in the game. Obviously, you want everybody to stay healthy, but if these guys leave upright, okay, these are the guys that I thought were the biggest winners of the week in Mobile. You start with defensive tackle Travis Jones out of UConn. This guy is massive. You're talking about a big interior defensive tackle that all week long was constantly pile driving guys back into the backfield, whether it was in team drills, whether it was in one-on-one drills. He was a constant force, winning the leverage battle, and he's a big guy. You're talking about a defensive tackle that's every bit of 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and getting up under the pads of these offensive linemen and driving them backwards. And he's a big dude. He's in the 330s, 340s, a big, massive man. I think he's actually in the 320s, 330s. You got to get these weights right and these heights right, because they are measured at the Senior Bowl. And you have these weights that you have that the school gives you, and then you get to the Senior Bowl, they get measured. You get to the Combine, they get measured and weighed again, and it's different. So he's a big dude. Just know that. He's huge, and he went to a school in UConn that isn't on the radar, but I think he is now officially on the radar. He looked good all week long. My favorite player of the week, and I have taken a strong liking to him, so much so that to me, he was this year's what was the guy for the Broncos with the shirt? Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot his name, but he reminds me of what he was last year to the Senior Bowl. And that's Trevor Penning. I mentioned him in day one and how he was tossing guys around like a rag doll. That continued in day number 3. This guy's nasty, man. He's a nasty boy. He's a nasty boy. He's a nasty boy. You know how I feel about offensive linemen that have that nasty streak in them. And Trevor Penning's streak is the nasty and dirtiest I've seen in quite some time. And I absolutely love it. And he quickly is becoming my absolute favorite player at the Senior Bowl going into the draft class of tackles. And I think he really helped himself, and separated himself from a cluster of tackles that were at the Senior Bowl that were right in that same neighborhood. I think he separated himself. I really, truly do. He was outstanding at the Senior Bowl, and I think he probably elevated himself into a top 3 tackle taken off the board, if you ask me. Roger Mcqueary, the cornerback for Auburn, was fantastic. I thought he was the best corner all week. And, a lot of people have been talking about his size. He's 5'9", he has short arms. He's this, he's that, he's not this, he's not that. What I do know is that he's quick as hell, probably the quickest feet of any cornerback in the draft. He is feisty, okay? And his change of direction and his quickness will give people fits. And the easy thing to do with a guy his size is to just stick him inside. I don't know if that is the best thing for him or not. Not everybody can survive and thrive inside, but I can tell you this guy played ball all week long, was in the hip pocket of these receivers. Yeah, is he a little handsy? Sure. I love it. And if it's only a penalty if it gets called. I thought he was fantastic, and I thought he elevated himself. I thought that going into this process, a guy like him, probably a second-round pick, early second-round pick. Could have been a late first. There's, just depends on what kind of run we see on corners. Remember, a year or two ago, we saw a run on corners in the first round when the Raiders decided to take the corner from, I want to say it was from Ohio State, early as hell, too. Like, whoa, what are you doing? And there was just this ridiculous run on corners early in the draft. And if there's one of those, then you could see a guy like Roger Mcqueary go really early in the first. You can see him go in the first round. I think he's more of a second-round corner myself, and I think his size will ultimately push him into the second. But I thought he was outstanding this week and really helped himself in Mobile. And then finally, I talked about this guy day one and what he was all week. He was unblockable. I thought he was the best edge rusher in Mobile the entire week, and he proved it. And that's Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. He was outstanding. They couldn't block him, and I thought that he was another guy that really asserted himself. And again, we know about Aiden Hutchinson, we know about Thibodeau, and we know about how high those guys are going to go. There's another wave of edge rushers. This is a deep defensive line edge rushing class, and I think he is now in that conversation, for a third edge rusher, fourth edge rusher off the board. He was already in that conversation. I think he strengthened his, hold on that third or fourth edge rusher off the board conversation. He was fantastic all week long. Now let's get into some of the losers in Mobile this week. And I hate using the phrase loser because, it's such a derogatory term. I mean, you don't really lose anything at Mobile. I think really it's more about having an opportunity to gain and climb and elevate and separate. And I think that's what the Senior Bowl is more about. I don't know if you necessarily go to the Senior Bowl and have the stock fall out of the bottom of your or the bottom fall out of your stock, your draft stock. I just don't think that happens at Mobile. And there's so many other opportunities if you do bomb in Mobile to make up for that. There's the combine, there's your pro day, there's individual private workouts and meetings with teams. So I just don't know if you can absolutely kill your draft stock, but I can tell you that there were some guys that didn't take advantage of the week in Mobile. And I want to start with two quarterbacks because I thought that they had a chance to really step up and separate themselves. Or in the case of a Sam Howell, remind people of what he was in 2020. So let's start with Kenny Pickett, because this was a guy that I think going into this process, by most accounts, not everyone was sold on Kenny Pickett as the first quarterback in this draft class, but the majority of people, the vast majority of people have Kenny Pickett as their first quarterback that will be selected in this draft class. And I still think he'll be the first quarterback selected in this draft. That said, he had a chance to solidify that, to really create some serious distance between him and the rest of the quarterback field. He did not do that on in this week. I didn't think he was outstanding at all. I didn't think he was exceptional. And I really think the whole hand thing is about to really intensify because he didn't have his hands measured. And then it rained on day 2 of practice. He didn't throw the football well, and he didn't handle the ball well that day. And so I think there will be even more conversations about his hand size. Again, I don't know if that'll really be something that teams are fixated on, but it is a part of the discussion after the way he wasn't alone. Again, a lot of these quarterbacks struggled, which is why Malik Willis looked so good on the second day, because a lot of these guys struggled with the elements and he didn't. That said, I didn't think Kenny Pickett was all that great in day 1 when there was no element, of wet weather, and he was terrible in day number 2. And, it was funny listening to, some of the pundits talk about him bouncing back in day 3. And look, they're supposed to be positive. They want these guys. I want these guys to win. I want everybody to get their bread. So they're not looking to be negative on any of these guys. They hate when they have to do that, but that's a part of the job. So, they were obviously going to be really praising Kenny Pickett for bouncing back day number 3 and playing much better. Of course he did. They were inside, controlled environment. He got to put both of his gloves back on. The ball wasn't wet. Of course he bounced back. That said, I didn't think Kenny Pickett separated himself. And I thought he had an opportunity to do that this week, and I didn't think he took full advantage of that. I still think when it's all said and done, he'll be the first quarterback selected, but all it takes is one team to fall in love with a Malik Willis or a Matt Corral, and that guy can leapfrog Kenny Pickett. It's that close, and Pickett needed to go out, have a week that left an impression on scouts, GMs, and coaches, and I don't think he necessarily did that with his performance on the field. Now, he might have done that in talking to some of these teams, and they could still watch the tape. But I still believe in my heart of hearts, when it's all said and done, he'll still be the first quarterback taken. But he did not separate himself from the rest of the pack, and that's what this was supposed to be all about for Kenny Pickett. The next guy is Sam Howell. I thought he had a chance to remind people why he was so highly touted going into this final season at Carolina. His 2020 campaign was phenomenal. He was surrounded by weapons that all left for the NFL. He struggled in 2021. He was not the same quarterback that we saw light up in 2020 when he was a Heisman candidate for much of that season. And so he needed to remind people of what he's capable of. I didn't think he did that during this week to the level that he would have liked to have done that. I thought that in team drills, he looked somewhat indecisive, kind of like he didn't want to make a mistake. Some of one of the knocks on him is that he turned it over. He made some poor decisions in 2021 trying to force it because he lost a lot of his weapons. And so I thought he looked so tentative and too indecisive in team drills. I don't want to make a mistake. There's a guy there. There's a window. I may be able to put it in there, but I don't want to turn it over. I'll just tuck it and run. And he's not going to get hit, I thought a lot of the quarterbacks did that, where instead of them trying to fit it into a window, and again, you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to turn it over, this, that, and the third. But also, I don't need to see you running with the football either. But if there's nothing there, I don't want you to force it. So there were opportunities I felt like watching Sam Howell out there in a couple of team drills where he could have, fit the ball into a tight window, and I think he turned it down because he didn't want to make a mistake. I just thought his week overall was somewhat uneven. There were times where I said, hey, that looks like the Sam Howell from 2020. And there were times where I said, he looks unsure, he looks indecisive. and he looks like a guy that is a middle of the pack quarterback in this year's draft class. So I thought he had a chance to remind people of why he should be one of the first quarterbacks taken in this year's draft class, and I didn't think he did that. Again, much like Kenny Pickett, he had a chance to really assert himself and create some distance, because I think Howell is in that second tier of quarterbacks in this year's draft class. I think he's more of a second-round pick right now, and he had a chance to maybe get himself into that first-round conversation, and I don't think he necessarily did that at the Senior Bowl. But again, there's still time. There's the game on Saturday, there's the Combine, and there's the pro days and individual workouts, but there's no more simulation of football. There's no more pads or any of that. That's over with. This was your last opportunity to do that, and I didn't think he took full advantage of that. And then the final guy is Bernhard Raimann, and this is the guy, offensive tackle out of Central Michigan, that a lot of people have as a first-round pick, and he'll probably still be a first-round pick because that's what happens with the tackle position. I talk about it all the time. Tackles are like quarterbacks. They go up draft boards. They don't go down the draft board. Everyone's looking for a tackle just like everyone's looking for a quarterback, and so normally everyone's reaching to grab theirs before they're all gone. And we do know the tackle position a lot of times is a limited quantity position while supplies last. So teams usually reach in, grab theirs, and I don't think this year is going to be any different. Teams are going to reach in, grab their tackles nice and early, and if you're late to the party, you'll miss out. So he may be the beneficiary of that. I thought he did not have great technique all week long, especially his hand placement. I thought his hands were wide and all outside all week long, allowing guys to get into his chest and bull rush him. He was holding a ton. I thought that he looked overmatched at times. Like, you're not in the MAC anymore, buddy. Okay, you're playing against SEC Titans here, and you're playing against NFL caliber guys. And I thought he was made to look foolish at times during the course of the week, and he was just so inconsistent with his hand placement. That's scary because there were guys that I've watched that I knew they were going to struggle because of poor hand placement and the lack of technique. The perfect example for me is Connor Williams coming out of Texas. There were people that loved Connor Williams. I did not. I didn't love Connor Williams. I didn't love his movement skills, and I damn sure didn't love his hand placement. And he's turned out to be a holding machine at the next level because his feet and his upper body aren't on the same page. He's lunging often. He's getting beat, and his hands are never in the right position. And I again, this is a guy that has come from another country. He's just learning football. That's why people are going to be high on him, because he's still learning the game, and he's like a big slab of clay that you can mold. With that said, I wasn't overly impressed, and I thought his week wasn't all that great. But again, size and athleticism are things you can't teach. And when you have that, they feel like they can teach you the fundamentals. He has everything that you're looking for. He just didn't showcase all of those skills in the week of practice, in my estimation. So those were my, I hate to say losers, but guys that didn't take advantage of the week of practice to their best abilities. That's how I feel about those particular players. In any event, that's the Senior Bowl practice week in a nutshell, for me, at least from my vantage point. Like I said, there's a game on Saturday. To me, the game is somewhat inconsequential. It's an all-star game similar to like the Pro Bowl. Who cares, right? You win, that's great. You make a play or two, awesome. But the week of practice is invaluable. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. I look forward to chopping it up with you for more draft coverage as we continue on our path to April. We will continue with the Draft Prospects 101 series, and we'll dive into these prospects and really start to get into the nitty-gritty of the upcoming 2022 NFL Draft. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, urging you to get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T. Until next time, remember, if you haven't already done so, do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button for more great content. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and also hit the like button as It helps this channel grow exponentially. Leave a comment down in the comment section if you think another guy helped himself or a guy didn't play to his best abilities and didn't help himself. Leave it down in the comment section, your overall recap and synopsis of the week that was in Mobile. Look forward to chopping it up with you in the future. You guys, take care.
LouieTeeNetwork.